Hey guys, welcome back to Catalina Foothills, Gospel-Centered Parenting and Marriage and Parenting class. Again, sad I can't be with you, but good to be here in video with you. And we've been talking about parenting in the second half of our study that began way back in January. And we've been looking at what it means to be a parent and what it means to raise children. And we've been working with this definition that parenting is raising children to creating a family where there's differentiated folks, there's safe, differentiated community and mission, a safe, differentiated community and mission. And we've looked at safe and we looked at differentiated, and today we're going to look at community. We'd remind you that we'd love to have questions. I'll do a whole one on Q&A if you'll send the questions in to ask us at cfcpca.org. And we'd be glad to answer that. And we may add a couple of these at the end since we can't be together and people have appreciated them. We'll probably keep going for a little while after we intended to end, and that would be our privilege. But today I want us to think about what it means to create a family. And there's a lot of ways to think about this. And I think I want to start out simply by saying, I can't give you a formula on any of this, as I'm 54 years of age and about to be 55 years of age in May. I realize that I hear lots of teachers and lots of pastors, very good teachers, pastors say, this is how to parent, or here are the 10 commandments for parenting, or here are the 10 ways to parent. And I just want to say, those are good teachings. I'm not here to beat up anybody, but there's not one right way to do things. People are different. People have different gifts. People have different personality. They have different experiences. And so your family could be different than another family, and yet both of them be very healthy families. I'm trying to get you to think about it, what you're trying to do, help you to sort of think about your thinking, to meta-think, to think about what's going on in your thoughts as we think about family. And so today, I want to just help you think about your family as a community. So one of my experiences that I have is I look back at college. I was in a campus ministry called RUF. You may not know what that is, but it's like Campus Crusade or InterVarsity. But I was also in a club. I was in a hiking club. And both the members of the hiking club and the members in RUF just look back on those times very fondly. Like, we loved being together. We loved being in that community. And I'd like you to think about something you look back on, you were involved in. You might have been involved in a club yourself in college. You may have been a part of a unique community and work at some point, where you look back on that and you think, man, that was awesome. And let's ask, why was that awesome? Let's ask, why was that good? Why do we look back on it fondly? Because I think as we do that, we may recognize what it is we want in our families. We want our children, right, to look back on their family life and go, that was awesome. That was fantastic. And I think we need to conceive a family as a community more than a family. Yes, there's a mom and a dad and there's children. And yes, there's tiny little kids. And then there's middle-aged kids, and then there's teenagers, right? So there's, babies and toddlers and pre-adolescents and adolescents and then young adults. And we all have roles, and we've thought about that. But it's also true that you want your family to be a community. And so I want us to think tonight just briefly about what it is that makes a community something that we remember fondly and want to go back into. And here's the three things I'm going to point out to you. I think we could read again the parable of the son that went away and the son that stayed home, and we would see these there in that parable also. But in this sense, I just want to sort of give you some wisdom from having seen our kids grow up. And really this wisdom comes from sitting in front of college kids for more than a decade on college campuses, listening to them talk about their families and seeing how that influenced the way that Marissa and I thought about families. We listened to these sort of, young adult, college age folks talk about their family. It helped us think about what makes a great family. And I want to say that there's three things that probably made us makes us think fondly of our communities we used to be in, and that is there was a clarity of why the community existed. I understood, secondly, how I fit into that community. And thirdly, the community helped me create great memories. It helped me have a good time. It helped me grow and succeed. So I want us to think about family as a community, as maybe even a club in some sense. And I want us to see the clarity of it, how we fit into it, and then the memories they bring. So first of all, I want you to realize that for a family to be healthy, there needs to be clarity about like, what are we doing? And why are we here? Now, I realize these are philosophical questions, and you've got 3 kids or 5 kids or your first kid, and you just love being married and you wanted to have kids, and you hadn't thought a lot about this, or you're like, man, my last child's about to graduate from college. I wish I'd thought about this. But there has to be clarity about what you expect as parents from your kids. There's nothing harder on kids. There's nothing that is more discouraging to kids to realize they don't know what their parents want, that it's always a moving target what their parents are asking from them. And so one of the things you and your spouse have to get your head around is how you're going to discipline and what you're trying to produce. Like, you've got to really decide ahead of time, what are our boundaries in this family and where do we want our kids to go? So for instance, it was for me and for Marissa to some extent, we had very few rules. And we were raising you to leave, not because we didn't love you, but our goal was to create people as they grew from toddlers to pre-adolescents to teenagers. We want to create responsible adults who can go and take care of themselves if we're not there to take care of them, who can make wise decisions. Now, there's a million things that went into that, but the rules for our kids were very simple and very clear. They were very simple and very clear, and our children knew what we expected of them. So you won't love this about me, or you might love this about me, but for instance, academics in our family was important, but it wasn't a big deal. We asked you to do your best. We knew basically what you could do, and we were involved in your classes. We'd help you with homework, but there wasn't much pressure around school for us. There was no pressure around sports, and my girls didn't particularly love sports. My girls loved to dance, so we got them involved in a dance studio. But the boundaries in our home were few but clear. And I think that as you think about your family, you and your wife really need to get on the page of saying, what are our rules? What do we expect? And how do we simplify it so we can invite our kids into a clear idea of what our family is? And most people family's like the sun. We know the sun's there. We see it all around us. It's obvious. But most of us, I know there's a few of you, but most of us don't know how it works. We don't know the internal mechanisms of it. That's kind of like family. And I'm simply saying you've got to decide up front, why are you having a family and what do you want from your kids? And you've got to be clear about that. It can't change every year with every different teaching. And it sort of goes back to something I said last week. You really want your kids to feel loved, to know they're loved, and that they can come home. And that needs to be clear to them. I can't tell you how often I sat with kids in college who would say, I never knew what my parents wanted. I never knew what made them happy. I never knew what they expected from me. And they would say, I know my parents love me, but it wasn't clear to me how I was to relate to my parents. So I think the first thing, and I want you to hear me say, is that there has to be clarity in your mind as parents about what you're doing and why you're there. I realize this brings up the question of discipline, and I'm going to do one of the extra videos I'll do here in a few weeks, and maybe I'll get some other. I'll try to get some other folks involved. Obviously, with social distancing, that's not simple, but I'll do one on discipline. And I realize also that I'm talking to a lot of folks as I transition from my first point to my second point, who have young kids, and some of this feels a bit esoteric. And like you're just in survival mode. And I just want to tell you just up front, if all your kids right now are 6 years of age or under, you're just surviving. You don't have time to have quiet times. You don't have time to exercise. You don't have time to have date nights. You're just in survival mode, and that's normal. And especially as you're stuck at home now, it's real normal for it to be chaotic. But I do want to plant the seeds of asking, what do I want my kids to be? What do I want them to be so that I can clearly articulate to them what I'm after? I'll tell you a couple things you're not after. You're not after creating good kids. Obviously, you want your kids to be good. But you want to create repentant kids. You want to create kids who understand the gospel. So like one of the clear things in your family has got to be, hey, repentance is necessary. Repentance is normal. Love is normal. Failure is normal. Not being perfect is normal. Not having perfect bodies is normal. And moms and dads, if they don't clearly articulate that, they're going to have kids deeply influenced by things like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everything coming around the corner, and it won't be clear to them what it means to be a normal human being. Normal human beings fail. Normal human beings are angry. Normal human beings are happy. Is there a clarity in your house and in your mind about what you're trying to produce? And is what you're trying to produce the picture in Scripture of a normal person? And as you look back on your fun groups you were in, there was clarity about why we were in RUF. There was clarity about why we were in the hiking club. There was clarity about what they wanted. There was clarity about the rules. It was easy and obvious, and therefore we had fun. Is there clarity in your minds about what you're after? That's the first thing I want you to think about today in creating a community in your family, is that you have a clarity of what's going on, of expectations, and of what the rules will be. And again, we're going to talk about discipline more deeply later on. But the second thing I want you to see is, and this is really hard, is as a parent, you have to figure out how your child fits in your community. And God is going to give you really different children. So this is really hard because not everybody's a leader. Not everybody's a follower. There's some chiefs, there's some Indians, there's some introverts, there's some extroverts. And you can't raise children the same way. One child will respond immediately to discipline of timeout. The next child won't. One child will respond to their iPhone being taken away. The next child won't. It's your job to figure out how your children fit into your family. And I just want to caution parents against thinking they know their kids. So let me talk especially to moms right now. It's interesting to me to hear all these moms talking about their sons in particular and how they, quote, know what they need. I don't think I ever really knew what my daughters needed. I'm a man. I love them. I created a safe environment for them. I listen to them. But I do not know in any sense what it is to be a woman. That's obvious. And parents have to be really careful about saying, I know what my child needs. I know what my son needs. They need to dress this way. They need to dress that way. They need to be this person. When you really don't know them. And you got to be careful that you don't name them something. That's the rebellious child. That's the quiet child. That's the introverted child. That's the extroverted child. That's the smart child. That's the first child. A lot of those characteristics are true. But you need to figure that child out, not just by naming them, but by helping them understand themselves and you understand them. I probably get blown up with questions about this, but I'm going to say it. The hardest thing for me as a campus minister was seeing parents who would call me and talk about their kids who were struggling. And I could tell that the parents loved their children deeply and didn't know their kids. They had decided what their kid was or what their kid should be or what they wanted their child to be. And they were imposing that on the child and creating pain and hurt instead of accepting what the child is. So you may have 3 kids, 2 of them just achieve in school. You don't have to help them with homework. And the third one hates homework, hates school, chase under it. And you just realize pretty quickly, I don't know that college is in the future for this child. I'm going to really encourage that. I'm going to be with them. But I don't know what God's going to do with them. When parents are sure they know what's going to happen to their kids, they're going to hurt them. You got to figure your kid out and how they fit into your community, not how you make them fit into your dreams. See, in my hiking club, we had some people who wanted to do long hikes. We had some people who wanted to do short hikes. We had some people who wanted to do flat hikes, some people who wanted to do hikes in the low country, in the mountains. You have to figure out how they fit in. You can't just say one size fits all. And parents do this, and moms especially do it with sons. And it's just dangerous. I mean, one of the things you're going to experience as a mom is when your son hits about 15, you've done all you can do for him. He's going to dress the way he wants to dress. He's going to think the way he wants to think. He's going to be what he is. And you'll get him back when he's about 25, but there's about a decade there when moms and sons, they just don't connect. There's also a truth that, dads and sons will have some of the same issues, and dads and daughters will have that issues at same times. But are you working to figure out what's best for your child, that child? Not what you hope that child will be, but what God has actually made that child to be. And I would just say that as Marissa and I raised our middle daughter, Catherine, she's incredibly different. And we really struggled to help her find her place. She was a welcome member in our family. She loved us. But for instance, and I know I've told you this before, but I think it's important. One year she said she didn't want to go to the beach with us when we were going right into school with an RUF at a conference at the beach. She wanted to stay home. She hates the beach. And we let her stay home. I don't know I know other people that hate the beach, but the other 4 of us love the beach. And we made a decision to leave her at home. Neighbor took care of her. She had a great time. But the way to let her fit in was to not make her go to the beach. To not force her to do something she hated. How does your child fit in? Who is your child? Communities do a good job. The communities of understanding who we are, making it clear how we fit in, and letting us be us, not imposing us on us. How does your child fit in? Which brings me to my last thing I want you to think about community is. The number one thing you're trying to do for your children in creating a community is you want to create memories for them. And you don't want the memories to be, you're yelling them about math, you're teaching them Spanish, you're writing them about their science project, you're yelling at them from the baseball stands, you're dragging them around fulfilling your dreams and not helping them become the humans they want to be. As I sat with college students, and if you take nothing else away from this, I want you to recognize that the college students, I said, man, I want my children to think about me the way that this guy thinks about his family. They had great memories of their family time. So it's just a big deal that as you raise your kids, that they see you, mom and dad, as human. Yeah, you're going to have to discipline them. You're going to have to correct them. You're going to have to do things that are hard. But you want to be a mom and dad that create memories for your children where they want to come home. The kids that I had the privilege of ministering to in college always thought, man, I want to go be with my parents. And those parents had a gift, and this wasn't because they were rich. This is because they knew how to create an environment where people were free to be themselves and where they were always having fun. Some of that was that they loved to camp with their parents, or they loved to go to the beach with their parents, or their parents loved to play board games with them, or their parents loved to play Fortnite with them. The most important thing you can do with your children, especially as they grow into teenage years, is to join them in learning how they have fun and to create memories. We blew Christmas out. We blew Halloween out in our family, and we blew their birthday parties out. My wife was an amazing birthday thrower. So that the girls now say, hey, I miss Mom's birthdays. I miss Christmas. I mean, one of the hard things about moving to Tucson is that Christmas was in this house we had in Knoxville, and we decorated a certain way, and we were kind of, part of the fun was we put up tons. We were that obnoxious family in the neighborhood that had too many lights up that didn't match. But my kids remember that. Pardon me, my kids want to come back to that. I cannot emphasize enough that you, as a family, the most important gift you'll give to your kids is that they will say, my parents knew how to have fun. My parents knew how to be with us. My parents weren't just slave drivers. My parents weren't just disciplinarians. My parents weren't always talking about homework. My parents weren't always talking about baseball. My parents knew how to invite us into a community that we wanted to be a part of. They knew how to create memories. And if you think about that son in the far country, what brought him home is he thought, hey, even I have memories that my servants were treated better than I'm being treated in this field. I remember my dad. I remember the life he had, and I want to go back to that. So this is what you're trying to do. I realize again, and we'll be a little more practical as we go forward in weeks to come, especially if we talk about discipline, but I really want you, especially as young couples, to think about clearly, what are we doing? What do we think family is? And what are we trying to raise? And I really want you to stop thinking you know what your children are, and I want you to discover them. It'll be hard because you're going to have some rebellious kids and some happy kids and some sad kids and kids all over the place. Talented, gifted, indifferent. But you've got to discover them. Jesus meets you where you are, and I hope I'll encourage you to learn to be a game night family, to learn to be a camping family, to learn to be a fishing family, to learn to create memories, to take your children off individually as parents on little day trips, that they remember that was their day with mom or that was their day with dad. Create memories for your family so they'll want to come home. Hey, ask us at cfcpca.org. Love to have your questions and look forward to seeing you next week. We'll talk to you then.